Welcome back to Inside City Hall. As we have been reporting, Mayor Bloomberg was in Albany this morning lobbying to get the city a better deal than the one proposed by Governor Cuomo in his budget. And even though the mayor was critical of some of the governor's proposals, the most forceful attack he mounted was on legislators that he says must give the city more control in exchange for cuts. Here to discuss that topic and much more are the four members of our Consultants Corner. We've got Republicans Tom Doherty and Robert Hornak, and Democrats Patrick Jenkins and Jeff Plout. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you.
And before I get a lot of email from people, all you women consultants out there, please send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. Let's talk about what happened in Albany today. The mayor went up there, and it wasn't quite hat in hand. Our mayor doesn't do hat in hand, but did he make an impression on you as maybe trying to change the dialogue from the way the governor set it up with his proposed budget?
Well, I mean, historically, regardless of the relationships, you're always going to have friction between the mayor of the city and the governor of the state of New York. I mean, we're very fortunate that I think we have two men who start off the conversation who like each other. Mayor Bloomberg supported Governor Cuomo in the election, but I think back to the time I was with Governor Pataki. I mean, he transformed state education to the city to the tune of almost $7 billion more, flipped the role where state aid beat the student population, and regardless, there's always the we don't get enough. And I think that a lot of good can come out of this because we desperately do need reform. It is unfair on one hand that the city is asked to spend X amount of mandated dollars, have no control over them. There needs to be pension reform. So I really think that at the end, both sides will do their dance. Both sides recognize dollars are very short. But I think at the end of it all, we were going to see much, much needed reforms so we don't have to have this conversation.
You know, Errol, Ed Koch used to say being mayor is the second toughest and best job in America. I think I got that right.
Mm-hmm.
But when the day when the mayor goes up to Albany to kind of lobby for more funds, all of a sudden you go from a huge figure who dominates the kind of daily discussion in the best and most important city in the country to a hat-in-hand supplicant. And that act is generally one which mayors don't like and don't fit particularly well because it kind of is counter to their positioning vis-a-vis issues and the electorate and everything else that they do. So I think it's kind of a tough thing because state government's not that well known to people, what the state government actually does, and all of a sudden people realize, hey, the state has a lot to say about what goes on in the city.
Yes, indeed.
Mayor Bloomberg was smart enough to know that the piggy bank in Albany is broken. There's no more money to get. This is a golden opportunity, as Tom pointed out, for real structural reform. And he's right in using that as a bargaining chip. If we can get that, it won't just help us this year with this budget, but it's going to help us 10, 20 years down the road. It would be a much more significant move than actually getting dollars to help close a short-term budget fall. That said, he is still going to have to go through Shelton Silver to get anything done up in Albany. Now, while the mayor's had a pretty good relationship with the Republican-controlled Senate, it's not quite the same situation with the Assembly. There's no way to know what direction they're going to go in. And while almost half of the entire legislature, the entire assembly, the members come from New York City, just a little under half, the mayor doesn't have a real warm and fuzzy relationship with them, and that's going to be a problem for him.
Is he changing that relationship, Patrick?
I think he's not really changing the relationship. I think it's a transformative time in state government, and he recognizes that. I think it was a good way to go up there and throw everything out on the table, call for a whole host of reforms, and begin negotiations. He understands that he has to try and derive something out of the relationship and derive something out of an Albany that is, at this point, hard-pressed to give anything. So I think he did a good job of going up and really just laying out an entire menu, knowing full well he's at the very beginning and will go up there and try to get something out of it.
Let's grade the mayor's relationship with the legislature. A being a great relationship, F being pretty darn bad. We'll start with you, Tom.
I think it's a B. I think he goes into it with a good relationship with the governor. He has a good relationship with the Senate Republicans because I think they share a lot of common ground. And I think that the relationship, while it has not been particularly good with the Assembly members over time, I think that the wind is at the governor's back on this one. I think he was, thrown into office talking about needed reforms, and so that, I think, is going to carry the day. So, again, when you have two guys who have a good relationship, I think the relationship stays well throughout the process, and they each fight what they have to do.
Patrick Jenkins, your grade.
I also gave him a B. I think that he starts off in a good position fighting for education mandates and fighting for city control, which he'll get support from members of the Assembly on. And over the years, even though he's lost a couple of battles, he's won a couple of battles, like his fight for mayoral control and the reauthorization of mayoral control. So I think he's in a good position, not a great position, but in a good position and is fighting for the things that people that represent the city can stand with him on.
Okay, Robert, your grade.
C+. While he does have a good relationship so far with the governor and, of course, with Dean Scalos, the institutional power in Albany is and always has been Sheldon Silver and the Assembly. And until he can get more out of the Assembly and a better working relationship with them, he caps at C+.
What's the plus?
Your grade.
Try to be generous.
I give Patrick an A and I give the mayor a B. I think.
What about me?
I
give a B too.
Exactly. So there we. I think he's done well on the mayoral accountability in public schools, and I think his failures have been in Albany have been on big things. So while he didn't get congestion pricing, while he hasn't gotten West Side Stadium. I mean, there have been big things he hasn't gotten, but they haven't made him look smaller. They've been failures of big things. And I think when a mayor or even a leader fails on bigger things, then politically it's not as bad as failing on smaller things.
Okay, very good. And of course, we're at the start of this budget dance. We'll find out more about that. But let's now take a break. We're going to have much more with our consultants in just a moment. And later on, I'll tell you how you can comment on tonight's program. Stay with us.